Hello, I'm Thomas Hare, Chief Content Officer of the Performance-Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. Welcome to the latest episode of Take 20, created by the PDMI's Brand Response Council. These 20-minute live conversations feature leaders in the performance marketing world speaking about the hottest topics in the industry, and they're scheduled twice a month, representing just a part of the PDMI's virtual education arsenal. Speaking of that, the PDMI's Workshop Council seasonal seminar series returns for its second 60-minute webinar titled Are Your Business Payments Safe? Next Wednesday, February 24th at the same time, 2 o'clock, while PDMI East Virtual, 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, I should say, while PDMI East Virtual, a two-day, eight webinar event, replacing our previously planned in-person event, will take place on March 9th and 10th. You can find more information on and your opportunity to register for these events at thepdmi.com. Before we get to today's conversation, a quick housekeeping note. The group will be addressing any questions from the audience at the end of the session, but you don't have to wait to ask them. Utilize the questions tab on your control panel to type and send in your question. We'll be collecting them and we'll try to get to as many as possible in the final moments of the episode. Today, we're excited to discuss multidimensional data aggregation. What does that mean? Well, as you know, businesses, brands, marketers, and consumers are all aggregating lots of data, from OTT and addressable to Facebook audiences to CRM and purchase data from LiveRamp. It's a challenge to blend, clean, and link all the data segments. How is it changing? What are the newest or best tools and tactics, and who's doing it really well? To lead the discussion, I'd like to welcome our host, Chris Foster, Vice President of New Business at Modern Postcard. Chris is the Chair of the Brand Response Council. His guests today are Ron Hadler, Vice President of Data and Innovation for Red Door Interactive, and Dan Kelly, General Manager Ad Sales for Dish Media. Thank you all for joining us. Chris, take it away.
Great, thanks so much, Thomas, and welcome in, everybody. Like Thomas said, the aggregation is a big thing right now because there are so many data sources, right? Email, social media accounts, SMS, website browsing history, device IDs, credit cards, public records, household addresses. It's all in the mix. And it's a job of the data-driven marketers. And I do believe in the true auspices of giving users, consumers, the most relevant ad experiences, right? You want to give them the things that they're interested in. And in addition, as we know, there's a big, large-scale privacy snowstorm that's sweeping through the digital landscape, just like we're going through now. And one of the biggest platforms with Facebook and with Apple's new privacy the pop-up alert to kind of say, hey, users, do you really want to get into this? An inherent in data-driven digital engagement is this commingling of priorities. You've got consumers, you have agencies, you've got brands, you've got platforms, and knowing these priorities without crossing that kind of this Rubicon of privacy invasion is the key for the data-driven marketer who has now become really an artist scientist to understand the data and to artfully use it in the most appropriate way possible. So there's a lot going on. And then Ron, I guess I'll start with you. Given all of that, and with the upcoming snowstorms and earthquakes that are going to change this data landscape, what do you see as the newest or best tools to aggregate data?
Yeah, good question. You know, there is a lot of tools out there, and I don't know if there's a best tool. I think that's almost a misnomer in the sense that, you know, you should be requirements driven, right? Because everybody's got a separate different requirements. What is their best tool for them? And I think that's how you should kind of focus really. And when it comes to that, there's a lot of folks that are doing things well. You could kind of rate them by revenue or something like that to get the best tool. Look at Gartner's or Forrester's kind of, you know, matrices. But I would say, you know, you really want to start with and what fits your particular circumstances. But data aggregation, right? You know, I mean, that's just one piece of the puzzle in the sense of getting and connecting to all of those different platforms. You might have a lot of siloed data, but you know, you have tools like Supermetrics, which is cheap, easy, fast to kind of get data, pull it in. Stitch data, Pine, Fivetran, Averti, you're all kind of connect to all of these, you know, different platforms and bring data in. That solves one piece of the puzzle is how to gather that data. Some of those have some ETL transforming tools, but then you have to store the data somewhere, right? And this is where the kind of privacy comes in. So understanding, you know, do you have a data warehouse such as, you know, Snowflake, BigQuery, or Redshift? And then, you know, you need to be able to kind of push that data out to activate it. So that's another piece of the puzzle. I think a lot of folks these days are really sort of turning towards the CDP or customer data platform to solve a lot of these problems. They're bringing all those, transactions in, they're bringing the customers, they're stitching together profiles, they're, have their first party data, they're buying third party data and getting that kind of complete 360-degree view of the customers that they can then segment and push out to their advertising, email platforms, etc.
That's fantastic. And I think that the CDP is one of those new concepts. Actually, it's probably not even a new concept, but back in the day, I think we remember when CRM was kind of new and content marketing was kind of new, but then they could become de facto marketing staples that anyone has to have in their kind of what we can now call a marketing stack. So are you saying from a customer data platform that that's going to be a must-have in the marketing stack in the upcoming years?
I think, in some sort of flavor, it's an evolution, really. It used to be referred to as database marketing in years gone by. But essentially, there are some new things in regards to it. The ability to stitch profiles together is really one of those kind of defining factors. Ingesting data and activating data outward are some of the other two defining factors of the customer data platform. You have vendors such as Ampurity, Segment, Telium, Datarama are all CDPs. There's like 78 of them out there. But you also have ones by the big guys, Salesforce, Oracle, and Adobe also have their flavors of CDP. So, if you're in that Salesforce area, maybe their CDP makes sense for you. It is important, and because you want to be able to collect this data, and you want to be able to understand where it's all at, and be able to abide by the privacy laws. If somebody says get rid of my data, you want to be able to have a place that you can go and get rid of it, but understand maybe where it's sourced from. Tell them to get rid of it too.
Right. Interesting. And so, Dan, from a media perspective, how do you see that, especially as you start advising either agencies or clients?
For us, to Ron's earlier point with the data and so many, great factors out there, data is definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution, right? So, depending upon what you're looking, like what kind of outcome are you trying to evaluate or look for, is going to probably, pretty much help decide which one of those phenomenal, third-party data vendors you should go with. Like, what is it you're trying to accomplish, whether that's from a brand awareness standpoint, to, sales match back, to, just learning about different products within your umbrella, or quite, maybe even just learning about your creatives. There's a lot of different, data companies out there. And the most important thing is how do they all mix together, right? And what can each of those different vehicles that you kind of mentioned, whether it's email or social media to television and the OTT space, like how does viewership information mix in with what else you're doing, like how you are interacting with social and things like that, because it's really the path throughout your day that's going to kind of determine how often perhaps that person needs to be reached. How much they need to be reached from a digital platform to a TV platform, and then ultimately trying to figure out, okay, across all of those different platforms, how do you attribute what to who? It's not just that last touch. They happen to go, from a digital world, it's a lot easier to connect that click to the website and then, go to a sale. However, what were the other things that along that consumer's journey? What are the other data points that they triggered in order to really kind of solidify that shopping experience? So that's why the need for the holistic look at the data and how it mingles in together is the key part. And again, different sources are better at bringing in the different components, and based on what your outcome is how many of those do you really need to look into or invest in, for that matter.
Oh, I love that. And what I like about that too is helping businesses and brands and or agencies make those kinds of decisions as to which data platform that is best for them. One question I think that would come up is, business now is not going to be the same business 2 or 3 years from now, and competitive landscapes will change, their products will change, their marketing is going to change, their media, their channels. So are you finding that it's relatively easy for a brand to maybe outgrow or need a different customer data platform as they evolve and as the landscape changes? Ron, have you seen that transition to be easy, or is that just a nightmare for brands?
I think most of these vendors are in the scalability kind of realm, and in the sense that they're going to grow with you. A lot of them are pricing per, records and things like that. So they're designed not to be outgrown. I think the issues or the gaps maybe in functionality is they don't ingest the particular platform that you need to pull in data from, or they don't activate to the particular platform you want to push data to. Those are probably some of the issues, but most of them are like, hey, just let us know, we'll figure it out. We have an API, or the vendor that you want to push to has an API, and there's ways to kind of solve those problems. That's part of the kind of implementation, setup, and ongoing maintenance of the CDP platforms.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think one of the things the brands will have to do is evolve in their collection of the data. What is it that they want from their customers, right? And how can they continue to garner information from the consumer in a safe and compliant manner that allows the customer to know, hey, I'm giving them this data because I'm getting something in return.
Mm-hmm.
That maintains a good relationship between the brand and the consumer, and then allows the brand to take that information and continue to evolve and learn, and quite honestly use that data to acquire more customers. Because from a modeling perspective and things like that, as their brand evolves, they need to learn more. They just need to do it in a way that keeps their consumer in mind. Doesn't alienate, doesn't scare them off,
right.
just and keeps them involved in that collection process.
No, I love that idea, because I think the idea of giving something to a consumer so they give you something in return, and that handshake, right? Of I'm not going to take advantage, but I'm also going to give you something that you like, and then also find other people that kind of look like you. Dan, I'm curious about what you talked about with profiling, because I think that is changing dramatically, and the kinds of profiling we were looking at. I think in the Wayback Machine, everyone in the industry is familiar with clusters, either Personics or Prisms or Connects, or however you put those together. Facebook has audiences and profiling that you can find lookalike audiences, which is a profile in and of itself. How do you see the profiling habits changing as it relates to, like to Ron's point, putting data in, putting it through the sausage maker, and then figuring out, okay, how do I then profile who I want to activate and push the data to?
Well, profiling and modeling is still going to be necessary, just in order to, again, go beyond your current base. You have the data from the folks that you've been able to collect from, but how is it that they came in there? They came in from being probably reached by something a little wider than just speaking directly to them, right? Like within that model. So the modeling will just get a little tighter, but I think it's always going to be critical to model in a certain way, because, well, one, there will be a growing number of one-to-one relationships as there's more, IP connected televisions and all the digital platforms. There is a lot of one-to-one conversations. However, especially when utilizing television is still a scale vehicle, right? You still want to reach the masses, because 10 of your customers are doing this doesn't mean that the next 2 folks in are doing it. So you always kind of want to be able to cast your net a little wider than just specifically what you have. So modeling will still be a key component moving forward. You'll just be able to, again, as you evolve your collection of data and the points that you're putting in, you'll be allowed to, a brand can rely more on their data than just, say, a data vendor's ideas or touch points. They can actually use their information in the model.
So what I like that, I love that idea, and especially as it gets more sophisticated with that blend of either one-to-one or broadcast or targeted. And I guess, Ron, in that combination of data and innovation for you, how are you seeing and advising clients as to profiling and best kind of tactics or approaches to find those best prospects?
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of what Dan said in the sense that really that first party data is the gold now. That's where things are going. I think with the advent of what Apple's doing, the approach of the removal of third party cookies coming in 2022, that third party data is really going to start diminishing. It's going to decay because people can't update those profiles. They can't sell them. You got the advents of compliancy with CCPA and CPRA, which is the new California Privacy Rights Act, which is very
Right.
GDPR like Europe's, So all of these things are going to really kind of clamp down on being able to transfer data that is not something that you own. So your first party data is going to be where your profiles are going to start. That's going to be your goal. And as you add to that, that's really kind of doing some strategies that we kind of do is being able to kind of do progressive profiling in the sense that you just get their email address to start. Then once they come to the site, you ask them a few more questions, and you ask them a few more questions. So you get these kind of bits of information about them, even though they may not be a customer, little by little. And so you kind of build that profile. And then you can do your personalization. Then you can do your retargeting, and those still the ways that you can kind of do through Facebook, through Google, get lookalike audiences based upon those folks that are coming to you.
Yeah, and
like automotive is a great example of that, right? It's like it's not just what's in your driveway or your garage or what you used to own. What else is it about that household that owns the majority of the model or something that you're looking to target, and then go find that. So there's a need to kind of widen it. You don't want to just focus your ad to the folks that own that type of vehicle. No, you want to be able to target, yes, to the folks that own that type of vehicle, but also do the other attributes of that household and the different data points that were collected. So that's where the modeling will continue to help folks reach a wide audience, but yet a smart targeted audience.
Yeah, and I think that's the right blend, because as I would think that all the marketers now are talking about not only how data affects attribution, right, the aggregation to the attribution conundrum, but then the question of waste, right? And so the attribution hopefully reveals where you're not wasting or wasting, but then attribution is a challenge in and of itself. And now there are technologies that are linking device IDs to browsing histories, to even mailing addresses, to credit card information. So there's a whole lot of data that's coming through to give marketers the best tools possible to do both the targeting, like you were talking about, Dan, even at the one-to-one, but also widening it, but maybe not too wide, right? I guess one question that I would have for both of you in the closing minutes is, who do you see that's doing this really well? Either a brand or an agency that you respect and say, they've really started to put some best practices together that we can all learn from. Ron, I'll start with you.
Yeah, good question. I don't know if I have somebody to level up. I will say this in regards to what you said, is in the sense that what people are looking at and what everybody's trying to solve is this ability to still track. And I think we're losing that a little bit with the removal of third-party cookies, the clamping down from Apple, and the fact that a cookie is only available from maybe as little as 24 hours to as long as 7 days. So you're losing that attribution. You're losing that ability to kind of understand where somebody got and how can you attribute it to an ad or email. What they're doing, and you mentioned one part, is this, being able to tie device ID, but we've had some interactions with vendors that are using 7 different signals in regards to that. And so they're figuring out other ways to kind of help us track. I mean, there's data out there that tracks the dynamic IP. So, a lot of us are working from home, so we're no longer at that corporate IP address, which has got your corporate name attached to it. You're using a temporary IP from your ISP. And so that just changes, right? So you reboot that router because everybody's on the web. So what happens is that they are aggregating that. They're tracking you just from that dynamic IP. IP. So there's lots of different signals out there, and we'll slowly see the laws and the lawmakers catch up to some of that stuff. But there's ways forward to kind of help us get there and keep tracking to where we want to.
Sure. Dan, some final thoughts on this?
I mean, listen, from a brand perspective, we're working with, I would say, categories that have really tapped into it and really honing in and utilize data in a smart way. Pharmaceutical, automotive, financial, definitely, and even like entertainment companies, and not just that one-to-one, but really utilizing modeling in a smart, creative way to be able to reach a wide yet targeted audience. From a data vendor perspective, I mean, again, it really comes down to what clients are looking to do. I mean, there's folks that specialize definitely in each one, whether it's from location data, where your phone's been, to website visitations and things like that, to aggregators. I'd say, folks like LiveRamp and Experian, definitely, we work a lot with when it comes to that aggregation of data, because, to Ron's point, the gold standard is definitely the first party. So the more and more folks that are getting first party, the best way for us to utilize that and be able to incorporate it is to work with one of those aggregators. So in that way, it keeps everything as safe as possible. And then be able to, again, target, but not get too specific on your target. You still need to reach the masses, and that's what television and, connected TV is great at doing.
That's great. I love some of these things, right? The Supermetric, Stitch Data, LiveRamp, Experian. There's a lot of, tools out there for our folks. This was fantastic. And we're actually right at a little bit past 20, which is awesome. So Thomas, I'm going to ask you if you've got some questions from the audience.
Yeah, actually, we do. We have a couple of good ones. One that came in about midway through this, and I'm gonna cobble it together because it came through in a couple parts. I believe this is from agency perspective, perhaps. Although we do not sell data, we do provide data, name, address, zip of callers who respond to an ad. Ordinarily, this data is free of charge and included as part of the media placement. In your opinion, is this data worth a separate fee? The clarification was we were able to capture name, address, and zip code via a national toll-free number placed in our owned and operated media. Should we sell the additional data collected via ANI?
Interesting question. We don't sell any data. I don't really kind of work with them, so I don't have any really good advice on you for that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, I mean, that would probably definitely be a brand kind of driven question, like in what they can garner from it. I'm sure there are brands out there that definitely might be interested in seeing that, or how they tap into it, or what they would, say, venture to pay for that. That I wouldn't even have a beginning.
Yeah. So the only thing that I would mention on that is if you've got this list, and this is golden list, that you think is a premium type of list, it depends on the kind of list. If it's a mailing list that you might be able to sell, premium mailing lists, consumer mailing lists, those are around the 25 to 35 cent per name. Those are the high end, I know exactly who I'm targeting, behavior-based kind of lists. So that'd be that kind of pricing range, probably no more than 40 cents a name. But if it's super premium and you think you can get away with it, that 25 to 35 would probably be the best range.
Thanks everybody. Another one here. Is there an easy cheat sheet that exists that outlines the optimal means to collect, warehouse, and utilize data in a compliant fashion? If so, where might that be found? Is it something that PDMI can work on to help provide to the membership?
That sounds like a headache for you, Tom.
I was very tentative reading the last part of the question.
I was just going to say, you sold yourself out on that last part.
That's a real good one, and yeah, it's really probably not a single one pager for a lot of this stuff because there's so many factors in regards to security, privacy, data compliancy. I think one of the things that we use at Red Door in an overriding of how to use data, and we use the slogan "Don't be creepy." And the reason we use that is that because there is a lot of data out there, and you kind of know when you're being creepy. So "Don't be creepy" is one of those kind of like slogans as to how you do that. But as far as compliance, there's all types of websites in regards to the different laws, and there are many laws. California is kind of leading that effort, but you have laws all over the United States that are either being enacted or almost close to being enacted. And so it is a moving and fluid situation when it comes to privacy and how to use that data. And then there are one sheets on best security practices, so understanding how to store that data, encrypt it, making sure it's encrypted at rest and in transit, and then all of the abilities to both share or sell that data. There's those, but I don't know if it's compiled into a one little nice box. I'm not sure it can be at this point in stage. We're still evolving. This is still going on.
I think the ANA, the IAB, both of them have different, sections and stuff like that where you can kind of dive into it. But to Ron's point, by platform, by state, by that, like there's so many different elements to it it would be pretty vast. But I don't know of a cheat sheet that really would kind of check off all those different ones. You definitely would have to stop at a couple of different points along the road.
Anything to add, Chris?
No, I would agree. I think that what I really liked earlier is what both gents said is about finding the method and the data platform that fits you, right? Instead of a best tool, Ron said their best tool. And it's probably the same for the data collection that's privacy compliant. Each business and brand is going to do it differently. And I think that they've got some tools that might be available for a small business based on the headcount and the talent that they have, because every marketing department is going to be different, right? If you've got 3 or 5 people in a marketing department, you don't have a data specialist. That's impossible, right? However, there are some brands that have 20 people in their marketing department and 20 people on the digital side, and 3 or 5 of them are data scientists. Totally different story in terms of what they're going to have for their checklist. So I'm going to just repeat what Ron said earlier to kind of end the program. We'll end the program with how it started, is to find your best tool. And my hunch is that the question that is, well, what method should I use to find my best tool? There are resources out there and folks to chat, even some in the professional network. Call different kinds of people from different kinds of businesses and see what they did. And in the end, you have to make it your own, to best fit for your business.
Great. Yeah, I think we're going to call it on that. I will note that data collection, data aggregation, data privacy, all of these things will remain topics throughout 2021, both here at the Take 20s, involved with our seasonal seminar series. And probably the next place we're going to talk about it is at PDMI East Virtual. We have a panel of some of the leading attorneys and the data privacy attorneys in the industry who are going to tackle some of those topics that both Ron and Dan brought up about the kind of differentiating rules. California, Virginia is now following along. Washington's trying to do something. When's the federal government going to get involved and say enough of these state by state rules? All of that conversation, we'll be discussing that on March 9th with a panel of leading attorneys in the industry. So again, urge you to go to pdmi.com and register for East Virtual and catch that conversation. Thank you to the 3 of you, Chris, Ron, Dan. Wonderful conversation. For you in the audience, your next opportunity to attend a live online Take 20 is Wednesday, March 3rd, as Chris, along with fellow Brand Response Council member Sean Robertson of Dish Media, will tease their upcoming PDMI East virtual session, The Sliding Scale Between Brand and Performance. Please visit the pdmi.com/take-20 to check out our upcoming schedule and register to attend today. Thank you again for checking out this episode. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your work week. Stay safe and stay well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.